Hadn't been a couple fun days for Jim Harbaugh, has it? The immediate reaction to the sign stealing allegations from Jim Harbaugh was vehement denials. What else is he going to say, right? Is he going to come out there and be like, you got me? Of course not. Of course he wasn't going to do that. That was never an option and was never realistically going to happen. So to pretend as if he's lying about that part is some big, gigantic ordeal is, like, that's just disingenuous. He was never going to come out and be like, this is going to turn bad for me. But it has turned bad for the Michigan football program. Reporting yesterday revealed that Connor Stalions, the $55,000 paid low-level staffer that Michigan has employed, had bought more than 30 tickets to 11 Big Ten games over the course of the last few seasons, with the reported express intent to record the opponent's sidelines with signals. BuckeyeHuddle.com's Tom Orr went back and looked through some photos that he had taken during the Ohio State-Michigan game the last 2 years, and you can see when Ohio State has the ball, Connor Stalions is standing close to the Michigan defensive coordinator. When Michigan has the ball, Connor Stalions is standing very close to the Michigan offensive coordinator. Now, why would that be? There are also pictures circulating where you can't necessarily confirm nor deny that there are laminated sheets Michigan coaches are holding showing arm movements being made by certain individuals wearing certain colors. The evidence is starting to mount. And as I mentioned earlier this week, if there is plausible deniability that Jim Harbaugh had no idea this was happening, it's not by accident. It's by design that Michigan is operating under the idea that they have to protect the mafia boss at the top. So even if you did not know, you're guilty. And I'm an open-minded guy. I am more than willing to hear out Michigan's defense for why this quote-unquote low-level staffer is always near their coordinators, whether it's offensive or defensive coordinator. Why is a low-level staffer standing directly beside the person calling the plays if they don't have inside information? Why do Michigan coaches have laminated sheets showing arm movements if there was no sign stealing, plot, plan, whatever? And how did they not know about it? I'm more than willing to hear the defense and hear their reasoning, explanation, whatever. I just don't believe that I'm going to be like, oh, you know what? That actually makes sense. Because it's the simplest answer is often the correct answer, right? I love the adage, if you hear hooves, do you think it's a zebra? Of course not. If you hear hooves, you think horse. So the easiest explanation is often the correct explanation. And the easiest explanation in this situation and scenario is what? Why would Michigan employ a low-level staffer who on game days wasn't at their games, but instead at games of teams that they were going to play in a couple of weeks? Now, why would that be? Additionally, why would that guy be near the offensive and defensive coordinators, depending on who had the ball? And with all of that information, with the guy buying 30 tickets to games over the course of the last couple of years at visiting opponents, why would he do that? Why would he always make sure that he was on the opposite sideline of the team that he wanted to scout? And why did Michigan coaches have sheets mimicking signals being put in by the opponent? The options to me seem pretty clear as if they are. This is an NCAA witch hunt because they just can't stand Michigan being good, or they were cheating. Those seemingly are the two options. I'm an open-minded guy. If somebody from Michigan can present to me a situation, scenario, explanation, whatever the case may be, of how all of those things might also be true, but we weren't breaking the rules, I'd love to hear it. I will flat out tell you, I don't buy into the first 6 years of Jim Harbaugh's tenure. They were 47-22 or whatever, and they are 30-3 since then, since they started cheating. I think Jim Harbaugh correctly got his head out of his ass and just said, listen, I need to stop. I need to change the way that we're approaching this. Basically, what I need to do is stop trying to put together a team that can win the national championship. I need to put together a team that can beat Ohio State. Because if I do that, that's going to be a team that can win the national championship. Michigan wasn't going to out-athlete Ohio State. They weren't going to outspeed Ohio State. They weren't going to out-recruit Ohio State. It just wasn't going to happen. But they could out-physical Ohio State. And Jim Harbaugh saw that, and I think he exploited that. Now, do I think it's a coincidence that they go 30-3 since they supposedly start cheating? No. But I think it can both be true that you were cheating and also might have been the better team, the more physical team. The video of, Aiden Hutchinson just going right through the chest of an Ohio State defender, I think is true. You can't deny that even if you have the signals, they're still the more physical team. But I got to tell you, I despise the idea of, I despise the defense mechanism of when you're accused of something and your immediate reaction is, I didn't do that. That didn't happen. And then some evidence comes out that shows you might have done that. And then it turns to, well, if I did do that, which I didn't, it's not even that big of a deal. I didn't even break the rules. This is a witch hunt. Well, hey, you can believe that all you'd like, but what the evidence has shown thus far is that's not true. And I have a very real problem with denying things that can be proven as true. And I will tell you that if there is no evidence that Jim Harbaugh is involved or that anybody in the Michigan staff is involved, that this guy is operating on his own, is poppycock, malarkey, balderdash, bull excrement. Because they wouldn't have done it if it wasn't an advantage. This guy would not have done all of this stuff just because he was bored. It's an argument. I like to make this argument. I like NASCAR, right? I like auto racing. And sometimes teams will get caught cheating, and that's fine. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, whatever. You just can't get caught. And people that defend those teams that get caught cheating, well, this minor infraction, it didn't even help. Well, if it didn't help, why were they doing it? That simple. If sign stealing didn't help, why did they do it? Because it appears very clear, and I can have my opinion changed by more evidence coming out. I'm not set in stone that, by God, Michigan was cheating, put an asterisk, ball ban them. I would like to see the evidence, but so far the evidence really suggests that Michigan went a really long way down the rabbit hole of sign stealing. More past the hey, there's a guy on the sideline being like, hey, when the guy in orange raises his right arm and then turns it to the right, they're running the ball. This is much different than that because the immediate reaction was like, well, everybody steals signs. Why is this against Michigan? Not everybody's sending a staffer to buying 30 tickets to 11 games around the Big Ten so they can record the sideline for 3 hours. There is a difference. And so if then it's proven that, hey, this was going on, and your immediate reaction is, well, it didn't change the outcome, it didn't help Michigan, then why in the hell were they doing it? Obviously, they were doing it because it gave them an advantage. And that's okay. Again, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. But when you get caught cheating, the immediate response cannot be, oh, it didn't help. Obviously, it helped. Obviously, it helped. To suggest otherwise is ridiculous. So I cannot wait to see this play out further because there is not a way, and I mentioned this on Sunday, there is not a way for it to be both. It cannot be both that the NCAA is telling the truth and has verifiable evidence that this guy was stealing signs in advance of when Michigan played these opponents, and Jim Harbaugh did not know about it. It cannot be both. Either the NCAA is lying or Jim Harbaugh is lying. Because you cannot have laminated sheets that purport to show the signals of your opponent. Everybody has them except for Jim Harbaugh. All of your coaches are prepared for this except for the guy at the top. All of your coaches have received a printed out, graphically made sheet that was then put through a laminator, and everybody got one except for Jim Harbaugh, and he never stumbled upon that information. I'm supposed to believe that the 10 coaches that are on the field coaches underneath Jim Harbaugh knew that, and he had no idea. Come on now. Whether you are a Michigan fan or not, it does not take a whole lot. Like it's much stronger, much more difficult mental gymnastics to get over that than anything. You can argue that, well, that's the hand signals. That was the signals that the officials make, so the coaches, they would know what the calls were being made. Come on now. Division I wide receiver coach at a Power 5 school doesn't know what an illegal procedure hand signal is from the official? Stop it. Stop it right now. There is now verifiable evidence that Michigan was stealing signs. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that because, like, if you're opponent and you weren't going through the process of trying to shield your signs enough to, like, you couldn't have your signs stolen, or you weren't changing them up enough, I don't have a ton of sympathy, truthfully. But an elaborate sign stealing operation where, and I don't necessarily, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of, like, okay, Connor Stallions, who is the accused low-level staffer, was making $55,000 a year and was buying tickets and traveling all over the country to, like, somebody was paying for all of this, right? Like, I don't, and maybe Michigan is dumb enough to have cut him a check for his tickets for Ohio State, Penn State this past weekend. And maybe there's a paper trail that you can Freedom of Information Act request and all of that stuff that will prove a conspiracy. I would like to give even that benefit of the doubt. Whether that's warranted or not, we'll see. But I would doubt that there is a paper trail linking Jim Harbaugh directly to this guy. But You cannot tell me, like, you can piss on my leg and tell me it's raining all you'd like. There are pictures and videos of the guy accused of stealing signs standing next to the person calling the plays, depending on who has the ball, with a with a stack of papers 3 inches thick, just always beside the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. You cannot tell me and expect me to believe, one, that guy is a low-level staffer, and then two, when it comes out that guy bought tickets in his own name, 30 tickets to, I think, 11 games is what the number was, to before Michigan played these teams, and then their coaches are seen with sheets that show what the hand signals are. You can't expect me to believe that guy's a low-level staffer, hardly even knows. It's the, I don't want to, I can't say that. It's the school, it's the former president's school of, I didn't do that, and if I did, it's not that bad. Sometimes you did, sometimes you get caught, and when you get caught, you have to just say, you cannot expect me to believe that anything less than that happened. You just can't do it. So I look forward to how and where this story goes, because it's going to be fascinating, because I think the more that comes out, the more difficult it is to suggest anything other than it's really clear that Michigan got caught stealing signs, and if you can equate their rise and success to it. Now, I will firmly believe, like, I think Michigan lost to TCU last year because Jim Harbaugh can be arrogant sometimes, and they will lose a game once a year or so strictly because of his arrogance. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in the next couple of weeks, and it will be rolled into, they got caught sign stealing, and then they couldn't prepare for Illinois or whatever, and they lost. Where I think once a year they're good for a boneheaded loss because they get arrogant. But we'll see where this all goes. But it's really fascinating to me, and I just don't. I will tell you, I'm open-minded. If you can give me a reason for why all of those things are true and yet you weren't cheating, I'll listen to it. I just don't think there is a reason for it. I don't think there is an explanation. I don't think there is a reasonable reason for why all of those things were true. And then I didn't do anything wrong. I can't equate that. I can't wait to watch it unfold, though, because it's already been a hell of a year for Big Ten coaches, and yet it could get worse. So we'll look forward to that. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing. So if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all of the great college football content we're pumping out here at Saturday Glory. If you're listening on the podcast, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel and get in front of more college football fans. We'll be back at it tomorrow here on the Daily Huddle with Saturday Glory.